You're going to get listed on the NASDAQ. What's that put your company? What's the valuation?
The bankers that we're working with, they've valued our company at 1.2 billion, and it's obviously an exciting number. It's fun.
Did you cry
Well,
when you heard that?
I was honestly, it was right on the mark with what I thought it was going to come back to. One of my favorite sayings is, "The harder I work, the luckier I get," and
That's,
that's what I would say happens.
I love that.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams. Come along, come on.
I'm Kevin Jervich. Welcome to Founder Uncovered, the show about those brave enough to dream big and bold enough to swim away from the safety of the shore. Here, we dive into the origin moments before the noise, before the spotlight, back when it was just a vision, a hunch, and a founder crazy enough to chase it. For all the dreamers listening, this is where your story begins. Perkins Coie is a leading international law firm known for providing high-value strategic solutions. The emerging companies and venture capital team counsels startups and the investors who back them, supporting clients from formation to exit. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to give you a quick little heads up and share some backstory. When you start listening to the interview, you're going to notice pretty quickly Sam and I are both pretty laid back. Because of that, the conversation definitely settles into a low-key chill vibe. But I'm telling you, be sure to stick through the entire episode because what Sam is doing is truly amazing. The wild part is he's only 24. To give some context how we met, Sam actually reached out to me out of the blue in a LinkedIn DM. At the time, he was just out of college from the Midwest and had a mechanical engineering background. I decided to take a chance on him. I DM'd him back, and about an hour later, we were on a phone call and I was walking around my hometown listening to this crazy idea. 99% of the stuff he was talking about was flying over my head. I even remember getting off the call thinking to myself, this guy's either crazy or a genius, and I don't know which one it is. We kept doing these monthly check-ins. I really started to like the guy. He was genuine, crazy passionate, and I could just tell in my gut he was really onto something. Fast forward to today, it's insane what he's accomplished in just a 5-year window. He's literally building mini nuclear power plants that not only power tens of thousands of homes, now they're powering data centers. This company is commercializing and valued at over $1 billion with a B. It's pretty crazy to say this. Despite all that, he still hasn't changed a bit. He's literally just a normal, humble, smart, quiet guy. I'm crazy proud of him. I know you're going to enjoy this story and journey. So kick your feet up, stick around, and enjoy my conversation with Sam. Dude, it's so good to see you, man. Crazy story.
hmm
Why don't you tell everybody how we met?
Yeah, yeah. So starting out, I was working in Kansas City at the time. I'm from South Dakota, so the Midwest, and was working at, this job that maybe I wasn't super excited about, and ultimately had this crazy dream that I was really wanting to move out to the Bay Area and follow this dream. And so I came across your profile and saw the work that you did, and I just said, hey, why don't I just reach out to Kevin and share what's going on? I have this passion for what I'm doing, and I have this idea I want to, chase. And so, lo and behold, I was very surprised that, you responded, and we set up a phone call, and we, started texting from there, got in touch, and uh, then you were like, you have to move to the Bay Area. You got to do it. And just little nudges like that, I think, are what's really important to, follow exactly what you need to do. Um, so that's a little bit from my perspective, but what about from your perspective? How
Yeah,
did how did we meet?
I think it was, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but basically Sam DMs me out of the blue And I don't want to say I'm the most popular person ever, but I do get a lot of DMs. And there was something even in the DM, I don't remember the exact words, but it was just super authentic. And I think you even mentioned something about maybe being a student or just like wanting to start a company. And I read it, I responded. That was at a time in my life, and I still try to do it, but it was a time in my life where I really tried to respond to like any single founder, because anybody who started a company knows most of the time it's hard. And in the beginning, it sucks. Once you start to win, it gets a little bit more fun. So I have a lot of empathy, like most founders do, for other people that want to start stuff. But I remember that first call, like, we connected, you sent me that DM, and then you went on to talk about this crazy idea that I knew nothing about. And I would love for you to like jump in and tell the world like what your idea is, because it's truly incredible. But I remember like after that first call thinking like, dude, this dude is crazy or
Yeah.
he's a genius. And I think I told you this like on the third call that we had, but basically like, yeah, once every few weeks, you and I would talk for like an hour. And, yeah, man, we're going to get into where you're at today, but I'm so proud of you. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your company? I want to
Mhm.
learn more about it. But yeah, what are you guys
Yeah,
doing?
of course. No, it's a great transition here. We're doing some pretty exciting things right now. The company is called Hadron Energy. I'm the founder and CEO. And Kevin, as you mentioned, we I think we got in touch back in like 2023, so it's been like a few years, and I officially moved to the Bay Area in July 2024. Like you, I packed everything in my car and drove off to San Francisco, the promised land. And
But you actually
what
didn't land in the promised land. You landed in East San Jose. For
yeah,
those
only
that
t
don't know the Bay Area, the East San Jose is, think about quintessential San Francisco. East San Jose is kind of the opposite.
The reason I landed there was I got an Airbnb, which is actually where I incorporated all of Hadron. And I was just trying to find my apartment, get to know the area a little better. And little did I know, Kevin was letting me know I was in a kind of more of like a dangerous part of town. So it was pretty
Mildly
funny.
put. That's mildly put.
Yeah, yeah, mildly put, yeah. So yeah, but the founding story is pretty fun and exciting for me to look back on. But at high level, Hadron Energy is building, they're called light water micromodular reactors, and it's a miniaturized nuclear power plant producing 10 megawatts electric, which that can power 10,000 homes simultaneously, 10-year refueling cycle. And my background's mechanical engineering, engineering leadership, and we, yeah, as we'll get into in a little bit, have developed the company pretty rapidly. A lot of engineers we're hiring from Berkeley, from various schools in the area. We have our engineering headquarters in the Bay Area still, but I live in New York City, and happy to provide some more updates there. But at a high level, that's what we do is we're providing carbon-free power for data centers, critical infrastructure, remote communities, and yeah, I can get into the details too.
This sounds like so technical for me and for most people that don't know anything about energy. It's like Mandarin or Chinese. How because I remember when you would tell me about this, and in the back of my mind we already talked like I thought you were partly crazy. How are you like Sam? And I know you have an awesome team now, but like how are you able to pull this off? Because we're gonna get into like where the company's at now eventually and some of these things that I've been able to see and talk to you about, but how come PG&E didn't pull this off, or how come one of these huge conglomerate energy companies didn't pull this off? And how come, and how are you guys able to do this?
That's a great question. I feel like it's very much the classic startup story of the large incumbents move very slowly, they're highly bureaucratic. All it takes is one disruptive team to come in and take over, you know. And really the biggest thing is there's never been a time like today because the demand is so incredibly clear for power, and the biggest thing is with everything AI, it is power is the limiting factor for AI. So that's something really important as we talk to all these hyperscalers and data centers. But the reason I bring this up, the timing has never been better. Public perception is at all-time highs. And for a fast-moving startup, you can kind of grasp onto that a lot quicker than sort of the larger companies, even if they have far more resources. That's how we've been able to essentially outpace, some of the developments of others is because we move very efficiently.
That's awesome, man. You know, one thing I've never told you, and I'm going to look you in the eye and tell you right now, I'm so proud of you.
Mhm.
How, because I think there's a lot of people out there. I fell into this bucket. It's like, I remember you were working that job.
Mhm.
It was in Kansas City.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, it was a good it was a great engineering job. It's just I always knew I had it in my heart in mind that I was going to start a business. I
Yeah.
always knew from a very young age. So there's nothing wrong with the job. It was more like I know I could do so much more,
Mm.
and being a founder enables you to leverage every ounce of your skill set. You have to put everything you have into it.
Yeah. What do you think like that one moment was when you're like, dude, I'm out of Kansas City, like I'm gonna go do this. And the thing is, like, the thing that you're building is not just some SaaS tool, right? Or like some super basic marketplace. Like,
Mhm.
what gave you the confidence to say, I'm leaving not only my steady job, but like the hometown, and I'm gonna dip to San Francisco or East San Jose where you started?
Yeah.
What gave you the confidence that you could actually pull this off? And then you ultimately, pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I think there always comes a day when if someone's looking to start a business, you have to stop studying and just make the jump because there's always the, analysis paralysis where you get stuck in a loop of doing constant research of, well, how do I do this? Well, how do I do that before I get into it? And there's something to be said about trusting your instincts and trusting that it'll work out for yourself, making that big jump. That is the most important step to the whole journey because most people probably wouldn't make the jump. And yes, there's risks involved, but the way I look at it, there's far greater risks involved if you don't take the jump. And I think on day one of declaring like I'm now a founder, I'm going to do this for myself and for the community and the world, then that's when you really can rely on, again, yourself. You steer your own ship. That's where I think the real impact is made.
I love that point. I think a lot of founders think, oh, you have it all lined up, it's all figured out.
Hmm.
Literally, I've actually never met a founder that had it all figured out or had the playbook perfect before they took that leap. It's really this kind of mindset of like, say yes. The best people I've ever worked with, the best founders I've ever seen, they say yes and then they step into the roles that they're not fully prepared actually to execute on. But that forces you, it's a nice forcing function to grow and to be better and to learn. And you rise to the occasion. I think us as humans and founders, we're crazy resilient. We're
Hmm.
also a little crazy for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because leaving the shore and like swimming off into the abyss of the ocean is wild and it takes a special person. But I think the thing that you hit on that's so important is like, you didn't have it all figured out. You just had that belief inside of you of like, I know this is here, it's not going anywhere. I got to go chase it. And
Mhm.
one of the things that's been so cool to me is, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 24 right now, and yeah, I'll turn 25 in May. So,
Sam is 24 years old.
yeah.
The amount of people that I see working at your company, the gray haired folks, just the older, more established professionals, how is it working and hiring and them working essentially for you? Like, and sometimes these people are 2 or 3 times your age. Like, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question, and the funny thing that I'll poke fun at myself, I consider myself like a old soul, if you will. I'm like a kind of like an old man. I go to bed I
You're
go to bed
24 year
early.
old old
I
man.
know,
Love it.
but yeah, I mean, I go to bed early, I wake up early, I have really early dinners, and like this routine is really important for just getting in the groove ultimately. But I think at the end of the day, if you surround yourself with the right people, age doesn't matter. And frankly, I never think it should. There shouldn't be limitations. There shouldn't be an age requirement for success. I don't subscribe to that mentality. And I think a lot of people should follow suit that you can be successful at any age. And, it's clearly showing that if you just follow what you believe in and you're very persistent, then good things will follow. As long as you're heading down, obviously you have to pivot every now and then, but if you go in the right general direction, then the right team will notice that. And I think that's the most important.
Was there a moment like in the last, 3 years since you moved out here, was there a moment where you're like, oh shit, I'm screwed? Or like, hey, this is the dead end? Or like, how are we going to get this regulatory body to like approve this thing? Was there ever a
Mhm.
moment in time or moments when it felt like this is the end?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can tell you that I always knew it was a matter of persistence. And the way I look at it is the long game. I think if, as a founder, if you can get past the first year and be successful, you're in a really good spot because in in a lot of cases, it's more about surviving than it is hitting like something massive right away. If you're in the right industry at the right time and you're staying alive, that's perfect. Um, for my case, I would say the biggest problems in the very early days was at the idea phase. It's incredibly hard to raise funds, and it's not maybe the most favorable fundraising market right now. So I remember when, I started the company when I had like $10,000 in my bank account, and many, many months later, continuing operations, and we were successful growing. But even many months later, I had 20,000 in my bank, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be patient. We're going to keep pushing. And there's many times where I felt if I don't receive this investor check, like this is going to put me in a really hard spot. But nonetheless, very much persistent and remained on track. And I think that's what enabled me to achieve that first year. And after that, that's when I saw a massive wave of exponential growth.
I remember when you were like raising your first round. I don't think you like announced it to me, but because you would send me text messages when you would get like a new investor. And
Yeah.
I remember because raising money is hard in any environment, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe boom times valuations are higher. It's still hard to get capital for businesses unless you have crazy traction, right? Or crazy
Hmm.
technology and an incredible team and story. But I remember when you were texting me and all of a sudden it felt like it was a wave. Remember you're like,
Yeah.
you got a 100K investor, you got a 50K investor. And it was like every week there was like two or three, four or five. And then I think
Hmm.
like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember like within the span of 2 weeks, you guys had like raised a couple 100K
Oh,
and it was
yeah.
sort of off to the races. How much did you guys end up raising in that first round? And what was it like for you on your side?
Yeah. So the first round was very much the friends and family, which is where I always recommend starting. And I think you offer a similar point of view on that rather than going the venture capital route, because this, I think, really streamlines the access. Your friends and family know you, and even just past colleagues. There's a lot of ways to raise early capital. My target in the early days was to raise 500,000. It took much, much longer than I thought it was going to take, but we got it done. I don't recall the exact timeline that it took, but then after that, we started, as you were mentioning, started receiving much larger investments. We would get 100, 200, and eventually we got a few $500,000, and then we got a few for 1 million, and it kept growing. So I can tell you the latest, you know, the first investment I ever received was a $2,000 check. most recently, we received $1 million check. As I was mentioning, this obviously did not come easily. It's a lot of work and legwork to get from the early day angel checks to the more institutional, very sophisticated investors. And those are the folks that we're talking to now. And that's been my favorite part is learning about this, whole capital market side of things. My background in engineering, it's what I'm very passionate about, the capital markets and understanding how we can capitalize the, clean energy industry. So that's what's been fun for me.
24 years old, getting $1 million checks. And as I'm hearing your story, I have a little egg on my face because I could have invested early and I didn't.
Mm.
It
That's
pains me.
okay.
It pains me. I didn't know it was 2000. Was that the minimum?
No, that was just, I was accepting basically whatever I could get in the early days.
Why didn't you tell me this? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it's all part of being a scrappy founder, as you know. It's not going to be like a textbook solution step by step. In fact, instead of it being a few steps, it looks like a crazy, you know, random process, honestly.
Yeah. We raised like 900K as a pre-seed, and then most recently we're closing $4 million seed round. If there's one thing, I always say this as a founder CEO, you kind of have like three core things, right? It's like set the vision of the company, hire great people, and don't run out of money. And those are all hard to do. Raising the money part is definitely, at least in my experience, painful because you're like not talking to your customers, you're not focused on your product, you're not like growing your business. You're like doing these sales calls is what it feels like. Which is obviously important. You have to have capital and oxygen in your company to build the thing that you're trying to build. But it sucks. It's painful. People say no a lot. There's a lot of that comes with it. But what's the total raise to date?
Yeah, so total, I believe we raised just over $8 million ahead of our listing with the SPAC. So I consider it like, we had a pre-seed, seed, and like a small Series A ahead of this listing. So the listing, we're merging with Good Capital 7, and they are publicly traded on NASDAQ. They have $212 million in their trust account. And we are optimistic based upon, what we're seeing. We believe based on industry trends as well that redemptions will be very low. So I expect our net proceeds to be about 200 million in addition to this this pipe raise that we're doing. So that is essentially what my main focus has been on.
Can you explain this a little bit to me? Because that's something I'm not familiar with. So you guys got acquired or you merged.
Merging, yeah.
You're going to get listed on the NASDAQ. What's
Hmm.
that put your company? What's the valuation?
Yes, the bankers that we're working with, they've valued our company at 1.2 billion, and it's obviously an exciting number. It's fun, but
Did you cry
wh-
when you heard that?
I was honestly, it was right on the mark with what I thought it was going to come back to because they mostly do a, industry comparison. Personally, I can tell you for me, while the valuation and fundraising it's rewarding, I'm very mission driven. The most important thing for me is putting reactors on the grid. I know that this is part of the story, but I can tell you that it was obviously very exciting. It was a lot of I could not believe how much diligence went into that merger and doing going through the process, and it was, yeah, it was something that I'll never forget, that's for sure.
I know like in this AI world, we can like get numb to these $1 billion valuations so quickly. But like
Hmm.
And I love the fact that you said you're mission driven. I think like any founder out there, if you're starting something for the money, you're gonna quit before you ever achieve any level of success. But in saying all of that, man, like think about like we just talked about that first DM 2023. And here we are sitting like barely into 2026. So it's not even 3 years, 2.5 years, let's say. You ever take a second and just take a step back and be like, I can't believe what the hell just happened?
I can tell you that I think about I'm incredibly grateful, and it's not to say it's without its sacrifices as well. As you know, being a founder is incredibly demanding. It requires a lot from you and a lot of attention, and moving to San Francisco, as you know, kind of on my own as a solo founder to start and getting everything to where I thought it could be successful. It's all about timing as well. I mean, that's one of the most important things. One of my favorite sayings is the harder I work, the luckier I get. And
That's,
that's what I would say happens.
I love that. Yeah, man. If we're not working hard when the opportunity presents itself, doesn't mean you're gonna be successful.
Mhm.
But if you're not working hard, the odds that you will are basically zero.
Yep.
When you put in the work, you have an opportunity potentially to be successful when that opportunity or that piece of luck comes your way. But
Mhm.
yeah, we Sam and I got a chance to meet for the first time in person. It's probably
Mhm.
like 4 months ago, maybe something like this. Got to see him in San Francisco. Got to take a selfie. Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
it's been sick. Now is home for you San Francisco, or are you in the East Coast, or where are you at now?
Yeah. I live in New York City full time now,
Um,
leading the public markets transaction from there. Um, Meeting with various investment banks and the investment community because they have a obviously very extensive public markets, network there. So that's been really fun for me. I always knew I wanted to have a presence in San Francisco and New York. I lived in San Francisco a little over a year, and then I made the move to New York August of 2025. So um, yeah,
are you an
it's been
East
great.
Coast guy or a West Coast guy?
It's so hard. I really like them both, to be honest with you, for different reasons. The West Coast, um, you cannot beat the scenery. I love the nature, and having my car is awesome. But because I can't have that in New York, there's pros and cons. I mean, both have amazing food. It kind of comes down to the culture. I think it depends what stage you are as a founder. I go wherever the best opportunity is for me at the current stage. For me, there's no better place to start a tech company than the Bay Area. And I think always having a footprint there is very important. Our engineering headquarters is still in the Bay Area. So,
As you're talking, you know what I'm thinking about? You know, people say all the time, "Oh, I want to start a company." Think about like the story you just kind of you told, right? From the Midwest, reaching out to me via DM, getting up the courage eventually to move on your own. You're like 22 years old. You probably have no money in your
mhm,
bank account.
yeah.
Moving into East San Jose, it's like the roughest neighborhood in the Bay Area, or one of.
Mhm,
Staying there for a while, then getting all your stuff, packing it in the car, driving it up to San Francisco, and like knowing nobody, right? Like,
mhm,
and now you're living in New York. Now you went from to the west, and now you packed up everything. Now you're in New York, making it happen over there, and like that's the sort of all in commitment that you need. You know, it doesn't mean you had everything figured out. Like we talked about earlier, it's not about having the whole roadmap and the whole guide to success. It's never that. But the fact that you put yourself out there when maybe you weren't ready, or you didn't know anybody, or you didn't have any money in your bank, and you found a way. I wish and I hope more founders realize that's what it takes. You know, that's the sort of bet, I guess, on yourself that successful founders take. And yes, it doesn't always work out, but life does have a funny way of working itself out. Like even if it didn't go perfectly as planned, when you take those sort of calculated bets and you go for it and you chase after what's in your heart, good things always happen, right? They really do. What do you feel
Mhm.
like in it's the new year? I know with my team, we just planned out all our goals and like, here's what we're going to accomplish. What does that look like? For you guys, you're over
Mhm.
$1 billion valuation, going to get listed on the Nasdaq. You had this merger that just is happening.
Mhm.
Getting back to maybe like the mission of your company, like what does 2026 look like as far as the impact you guys are going to have, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about, and I would say the biggest focus for me, getting this listing through and really starting to share the story on a much larger network and getting it out there. I really want to make Hadron a name brand so that when people think of clean energy, they think Hadron because it's something simple that people can understand. As you know, a nuclear reactor is pretty complex, but what we're doing is trying to make it as simple as we possibly can to, make it understandable for the average Joe. But in terms of actual progress and goals and things, I really want to significantly scale up our team, and we're going to make a significant amount of engineering and licensing progress. That's the most important in this industry is working with the regulators. So I'm always going to DC as well. I'm going to DC in 2 days. So I meet with the Department of Energy, I meet with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I've even met a few times with the Department of War now. And it's like you're saying too, Kevin, I think most of the time it's about showing up and having boots on the ground, face-to-face interaction. That is really what drives the ball forward, I think.
It's incredible, man. When you look back on your journey, what's one thing that sticks out? I know it's just started, but you've already climbed like crazy high, and I know you still have lofty goals, but what sort of attribute about yourself or your decision making do you kind of attribute this success that you've had at such a young age?
I would say there's two things. I am very stubborn and very persistent. So even though, and the thing is like you're saying too, to make very like calculated decisions, if you truly believe this is the right way and you need to kind of stick to your guns a little bit and say, this is what I'm going to do. And naturally, I think people will follow that. The longer you do it over a very extended period of time, I think the more it grabs hold of people and the message becomes clear. But I would say, Kevin, I was listening to your interview and you were mentioning how founders, talking to 50 investors, they'll likely all say no. Believe me, I don't even know how many times I've been told no. It doesn't even faze me because I know for a fact where I'm going. It's a matter of if this person wants to join.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I'm so proud of you. And I think mostly the fact that you're working on something like this and the impact it's going to have in society is awesome. It's like you're not working on, not to hate on Tinder, but there's not another dating app, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's so cool. I've been lucky to have kind of a front row seat on the last 2.5 years, and dude, I'm pumped to
Hmm.
continue to have this front row seat on the next 2.5 plus.
Hmm.
It's been an honor, man. I'm glad that we hopped on this pod. Before we
Yeah.
leave, one or two books you've read in the last year that most impacted you as an entrepreneur, as a founder.
Ooh, this is a really good question. Half of, I would say, if not half, the vast majority of being a founder is being a good salesperson. So understanding human nature, Robert Greene, The Laws of Human Nature, that's an incredible book. And just generally for your mindset, I I didn't read this one recently. I read it a while back, but it's always stayed with me as Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So I highly recommend those two books, mostly to have the right mindset. I think if you have the right mindset, you can do basically anything.
I love it. And in the beginning of the pod, there's a quote. We didn't hear it, but it's in the intro. We are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams. And man, you totally amplify that. And I'm gonna be rooting for you. Can't wait to see what happens with you and the company. And yeah, man, next time I'm in New York, I'm gonna hit you up.
Of course. Thanks so much, Kevin. And when we look to ring the bell, I'll shoot you an invite.
Oh, dude, love it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Founder Uncovered. If you found this conversation helpful, please follow the show notes so you don't miss out on next episodes. We also have a newsletter where we profile early stage founders sharing tactical advice you can use right now. You can find the link in the show notes. One conversation can change everything. I'll see you next time. Perkins Coie is a leading international law firm known for providing high-value strategic solutions. The emerging companies and venture capital team counsels startups and the investors who back them, supporting clients from formation to exit. In the past 3 years, clients have raised more than $23 billion, with a B, in private markets between pre-seed and growth stages. Perkins Coie combines tailored counsel with sector experience. So when it's time to accelerate, whether for the next financing round, a strategic deal, or even going public, your team is ready. To learn more, visit perkinscoie.com.